RNC and the Trump campaign had a historic election last round. How has this coordination between the two, the RNC and the Trump campaign, continued into his second term?
You know, it's so important for us, right? Because I wanted to make sure when I came in as the chair that we were on one page and we were running one campaign with one voice. And so when we merged the operations of the Trump campaign with the RNC, that really kind of cemented that. And the mission became very critical for us, right? Let the president go be the president in terms of his message and his delivery. And then we wanted to focus on getting out the vote and protecting the ballot. So, you know, right now, what we want to do is, number one, make sure that we're amplifying his messages from the White House and we're supporting the agenda that the administration is out there trying to implement. But then second, as we look at 26, is understanding what worked in 24, and we need to make sure we're going to do it again. So it is really, truly get out the vote, protect the ballot. We're going to have a different map, right? Because it's going to be a congressionally driven, Senate driven map, and we want to make sure that we're in the districts and states that are truly going to matter. But from a fundamental standpoint, we want to make sure that we're taking the lessons learned from last cycle about how to get out the vote and how to build that national election integrity program and keep those going.
What's your reaction to Elon Musk saying that he's going to form a third party, the America Party?
You know, we'll wait and see kind of what that ultimately is going to look like. I think if Elon wants to drag the Republican Party to the right and he's going to be engaged in primaries, I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over that, right? Because we are always going to have conversations within Republican primaries about whether we need to be more focused on business and economic issues or social issues, whether we're going to be focused, you know, more about moving a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. And I'm perfectly comfortable with that, so long as everybody closes ranks once we come out of the primary. If what he ultimately talks about doing is putting into play a new effort that's going to focus on beating us in the general election and electing Democrats, that's obviously a much different scenario. So I want to kind of see how this is going to develop from him. But at the same time, we're going to focus on the things we can control, right? We are going to be focused on recruiting and training the best candidates that we can, on making sure that we're building the infrastructure that we need to get out the vote in our grassroots activities, and making sure that we're building out that election integrity program. Those are things that I can control today. And so the investments that we're making right now for next year are going to be very additive, but it's important for us to be there now, focusing on getting an environment, because that ultimately is going to be the biggest thing, right? What is the economy going to look like? What is, you know, our border going to look like? What is our national security posture going to look like? That's what the president, the administration, and Congress are going to focus on. You know, so we want to make sure that we're talking about that, we're amplifying that, and we're getting ready from a nuts and bolts perspective for the election.
So President Trump has been, and Republicans have been on a great winning streak with the economy, immigration, ending wars. What do you think is what's the next thing that everybody should focus on?
Sure, you know, and if you look at what the president has done, it fundamentally comes down to keeping the promises that he made during the campaign. And promises made, promises kept is something that every Republican always needs to keep in mind. Certainly everybody in the administration does. We at the RNC do. And so, you know, that's the biggest thing that we're seeing right now. And so the big, beautiful bill is a big part of that, right? But it's only one leg of this economic stool, because the tax piece is very important for every community, for every factory, every worker, every family. Is no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, and extending those Trump tax cuts. But we also need the regulatory relief that's happening right now in every department and agency. That's going to continue to be ongoing. And we also need to get the trade and tariff conversation to where it's ultimately going to go, which is a place where the trade regime is going to be fair for America, fair for our factories and our workers.
You mentioned the big, beautiful bill. What do you think is the reaction of Republicans and maybe even independent voters on all Democrats voting against something basic like immigration enforcement?
Yeah, it's absolutely stunning to me when you think about all of the issue sets that we had in that bill. Extending the Trump tax cuts, 75% approval. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, 75% approval. Right, making sure that we have, you know, unleash American energy to bring down gas prices, 65% approval. You know, reinforcing the border, right, building the border wall and 10,000 new ICE agents, 75% approval rating. Democrats voted against every single one of those every single Democrat voted against every single one of those. So we certainly are going to embrace the bill, and we're going to campaign on the bill in every one of those districts. You know, there's 13 congressional seats right now where President Trump won the district and a Democrat holds that seat. The people in those districts, this is the agenda that they voted for. This is what they want. And the Democrats in every one of those districts voted against it. So we're going to be in the field, and we're going to be having that conversation as we go forward to remind the voters that these people may talk moderate when they're home, but they're voting liberal when they get to D.C.
So what do you think a successful roadmap looks like for Republicans leading up to the midterm elections?
Yeah, well, when we think about the congressional districts, right, there's 13 of them that Donald Trump won, the Democrats hold the seat. There are 3 that Kamala Harris won and Republicans hold the seat. So those 16 are definitely the center of the bullseye, right? And then we have a lot of other districts, maybe 20, 25 other districts that are between 2 or 3 points Republican, 2 or 3 points Democrat, where we're going to make sure that we're working to try and pick those districts off and make sure everybody's going to be in play. But ultimately, you know, it's going to come down to 30, 35 congressional districts that are really going to determine what the margin's going to be. When we think about the Senate, you know, we want to think about the Republican hold seats like North Carolina and Kentucky and Maine, where we're going to have a difficult time holding on to those seats, but we've got, you know, a great candidate up in Maine. We need to figure out who the candidates are going to be in North Carolina and Kentucky. Then the flip side of that is great pickup opportunities in Georgia and Michigan, right? So, you know, when the map is going to kind of be driven by what those races look like, but optimistically, you know, we feel cautiously optimistic. We feel pretty good because President Trump is delivering, and we're going to have an environment that is a strong economy, a strong southern border, and a strong standing in the world.
What do you think is one of the main policies or victories that Republicans and Trump have had that will pull independents to the party?
You know, ultimately, when you think about independent voters, you think about suburban voters, you think about independents and unaffiliated voters, ultimately the economy is going to matter for them more than anything, but safety really is a huge issue for them. We want to make sure that their communities and their families and their kids are going to be safe. That we're going to get rid of fentanyl. We're going to get rid of the, you know, the violent criminal illegal aliens that are manifesting themselves in towns like Aurora. You know, that we're going to have an economy that works for every family, for every worker, that we're seeing real wages are going up. Housing prices are coming down. Gasoline prices are coming down. Grocery prices are coming down. And it's so important for the big, beautiful bill because it really touches on every single one of those issues within that piece of legislation. And the president is going to continue to drive the administration, you know, to perform every day for every family.